Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about Nashville SC in the Moving Forward series episode, and for the first time in franchise history, Nashville is not going to make it to the playoffs. In their first four season, they were able to make it to the playoffs, but unfortunately this year, no doubt, was the worst year out of the 5 years stint that Nashville has had so far in MLS, and the writing was on the wall. We kind of saw it coming last season as well, that things were definitely not going right for this Nashville team. And this season, all this model that Gary Smith have kind of built, that they've been running for the year and time, it just simply collapsed this season. It's pretty clear that the plan of just kind of bunker and trying to hit teams on the counterattack and taking chances of those set pieces and not have a plan B after that, yeah, it just doesn't quite work out. And it's got to a point where it's just so easy to play against Nashville. All you have to do is give them the ball because they don't really do very well when it comes to breaking teams down. And not to mention their difference makers have completely fall off the cliff for most part this season. And with the way that the model completely fall apart, so is Gary Smith of being fired from this team. And it feels like now this team is heading to a new era with BJ Callaghan taking the wheel in the middle of the season. Now, that being said, in terms of this season, 8, 9, and 16 is their record. Yeah, pretty ugly record with 33 points. They scored 35 goals this season, and this also has been a problem for Nashville for the past couple of years. They have had problems in terms of scoring. And in fact, I wouldn't even say the last couple of years. This has always been a problem for Nashville. Nashville has always been a team that has struggled to score goals, and this season, with 35 goals, they're tied with New England as the worst goal scoring team in the league, and they gave up 54 goals this season, and that's kind of the difference of why they've been so bad this season. After years and years where they're one of the best defensive team in the league, this season that defense, there's an old saying that when you basically hold the boulder of burden, if you hold it for so long, eventually you're going to collapse and it's going to buckle. And that defense completely buckled this season. It just was almost doing a carrying job for so long now that eventually just can't do it anymore with the way that they gave up so many goals this season, and they have a minus 19 goal differential, which is also one of the worst in the league as well. They're currently 13th in the Eastern Conference, and looking at the last season they did make it to the playoffs in seventh place with 13, 10, and 11 record and finished with 49 points. But there were signs last season where the beginning seems like it's coming to an end in terms of the model that this team has been running since day one under Gary Smith. Before that, they did finish fifth with a 13, 11, and 10 record and finished with 50 points. By the way, in 2023, when they were able to make it to the playoffs, this is follow after they went on an incredible bad run of format after the Leeds Cup and just barely made it to the playoffs as a resort. So again, the writing was kind of on the wall, and this team just kind of never looked like the Saints after what we saw in the post 2023 Leeds Cup, and they just have never been the same team ever since they also made that final against Inter Miami. But in 2022, they finished with fifth position with a 13, 11, and 10 record and finished with 50 points. In 2021, this is the best season for Nashville SC, finished all the way up to third place with a 12, 18, and 4 record. Yeah, they draw a lot of games, so much so that they actually tied the Chicago Fire with the most draw in a single season. But unlike that Chicago team where they miss out on the playoffs. This team, despite drawing so many games, they also don't lose a lot of games. They only lost 4 times the whole season with 54 points, which is tied with one of the lowest amount of losses we've seen in recent history by an MLS team. And then in the COVID shortened season, in their first ever season, we remember that they finished in seventh position. They finished with an 8, 8, and 7 record, and that was such a magical season for Nashville. Not only becoming one of the rare expansion team to make it to the playoffs, but they also went the furthest out of any expansion team that we have seen before, winning multiple playoff matchup. Well, if you count the play game as a playoff matchup against Inter Miami and then beating Toronto FC and causing a major upset in that playoffs too, with them being the 7th seed, beating the 2 seed Toronto to make it into the Eastern Conference semifinal, which eventually they did fall to the eventual MLS Cup winner, the Columbus Crew, in the 2020 season. Top goal scorer for this team. Can't believe, but Sam Surridge actually hit double-digit goal. And Sam Surridge so far doing his time for Nashville, it's been very mixed bag. And I think there are potential that he could be that number 9 that they of course signed him a couple of well, not a couple of years, but just last year itself, but it's just been kind of inconsistent. There's been times where he's been good, and then there's times where he go through a cold streak. And then you got Hani Mukhtar with 8 goals. Yeah, he has definitely looked like a shell of his former self. I said this about Sebastian Dreyusi. I'll basically repeat the same with Hani Mukhtar. Just it's hard to believe. Just 2 years ago, we had a battle between those two guys for the MVP race, and well, Hani Mukhtar was able to win that MVP race over Dreyusi. It's hard to believe how much both of those guys completely fall off the cliff in that short amount of period. Then you have Alex Mule actually with 4 goals. I can't believe Alex Mule is in the top 5 goal scoring chart. And this is also no disrespect to Alex Mule, but if Alex Mule is one of your top goal scorers, you know you have serious problem. And really, this team, besides Surridge and Mukhtar, they just have no decent goal scorer. Teal Bunbury with 3 goals and Tyler Boyd finished with 2 goals. And keep in mind, Tyler Boyd, he is he done his ACL in the beginning of the season. So the fact that he still ends up in as one of the top 5 goal scorers just to shows you how much problem they have when it comes to goal scoring. And if your name is not Surridge and Mukhtar, yeah, most likely you're not going to be putting the ball into the back net. Top assist leader, it's actually Hadi Mukhtar with 10 assists, followed by Shaq Moore with 4 assists. Then you got Jacob Schaffer with 4 assists, Drew Year with 4 assists, and Tyler Boyd with 3 assists. Best game of the season. I'm gonna go with the 2-0 win that they had against FC Cincinnati on the road, and this was also around the same time when Miami also lost in their game at home. So we had the top 2 teams losing on the same night. That was just kind of a wacky kind of match week. But yeah, Nashville really just kind of completely out of nowhere. They were on a very bad run of form, and just kind of out of nowhere they were able to beat Cincinnati. And keep in mind, this was back when Cincinnati was still doing really really good, and we didn't know that they were a team that ends up to not really play very well this season at TKO Stadium. Worst game of the season. Boy, there was a lot I could have chose in terms of worst game of the season. Nashville has had some really ugly game this year. I could have easily gone with the 4-1 loss that they had against the Portland Timbers, where that when they found themselves 4-0 down and then found themselves with a red card after 28 minutes. That was probably the worst showing I've seen an MLS team has. At least one of the worst showing in the an MLS team has to start the game. Eventually, they did kind of get themselves into the game, but in the end, I got to go with a 4-3 loss against DC United at home. I mean, what was so bad about that loss is not only the fact that I think that was the game that they got eliminated from the playoffs, but they completely collapsed in that game. They should have not lost that game. At the very least, they probably should have draw that game because they did give up a late stoppage time equalizer, but in no way they should be giving up a stoppage time equalizer and then a game winning stoppage time just a couple of minutes. It was just a complete self destruction for Nashville SC, and just kind of almost sums up Nashville this season. A team that used to be a team that, if I would have told you just a couple of years that this was a Nashville team that a couple of years from now will have these kind of results. This is a team that doesn't give up leads. I've always mentioned throughout my review during when Nashville was still doing very well under Gary Smith that when they go on a low block late in the game, they are kind of the master in terms of closing out game. Good luck trying to break down that low block, but now that they try to do it, it just hasn't worked out because, like I said, the defense have just completely buckled this season, and that is not only go down as one of the worst game of the season, but might be one of the worst game that Nashville SC has ever played, with them just completely self-destruct in that game. And that I believe that was the game when they, of course, are officially eliminated from playoffs. Now, in terms of average attendance, 28,587, which is good for fifth in the standing. No way in hell. That is actually the butts in this seat. That absolutely has to be the pay attendance, because there's been times where I've seen so many empty seats at Geodis Park. Even though then they announced that there was like 20,000 in the crowd, it felt like there was only like not even half of it, like maybe a third of it inside that stadium. And I know when they designed that stadium, they did do a good job in terms of, when there's not a lot of fans in the stands, you can at least kind of feel like there's a lot of people in the stands. But I can also tell that there was a tons and tons of empty seats, and that, yeah, there is no way in hell that they had 28,587 or came close to selling out that building week in and week out. And it's a shame too, because Geodis Park used to be one of the best atmosphere in MLS, and unfortunately this year it just hasn't been the case because with the team that is not doing very well, the crowd is more thinner, and it's just you don't have that same energy compared to what we seen when Nashville opened that building last year. Now, in terms of MVP of this team, I'm actually going to go with none on this team. Originally, I was thinking maybe put Sam Surgeon or Hani Mukhtar in because I think both of those guys, as I'll mention in a bit, they kind of turned it up a little bit, started to look like the old self late in the season, especially under BJ Callaghan. But I mean, in a full season like that, there's really nobody I can see that is an MVP. And for the disappointment, I mean, I could have just that's another one where I kind of cheated a little bit by saying pretty much everyone. I mean, on this team, there is no one on this team that don't deserve to be a disappointment this season. All these pieces that they have is just completely underachieve, and that just absolute disappointment. I mean, if I had to really choose a disappointment, I might go with Randall Leal, though that's kind of hard because he has never been able to stay healthy. Or I could even go with Hani Mukhtar with how he just completely fall off the cliff like that. But yeah, just pretty much everyone on this team. Young player to watch? None. Again, this is a team that for the last couple of years, or really ever since they came into the league, this team has never been able to develop young players whatsoever, and that might be something that they have to solve because the fact that between them and I think Minnesota are probably the two teams that are a clear example of unable to produce any player out of their academy. That puts a lot of pressure in terms of now making sure all these signings that you made, either international signing or interleague signing, actually worked out. Because if it doesn't work out like that, it's not like you can rely on some of these young players and hope that they can step up because again, this national team has never known to have some good young players. And it also doesn't help when Gary Smith was taking charge of this team. He never really played any of these young players out of this team whatsoever. I mean, I think if I had to choose, I might go with Foster or Iago, who I thought he showed some good development, especially in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. But ever since that, he has barely made an appearance for this national team, and this is even when BJ Callaghan was taking charge of this team as well. So what went right for this Nashville SC team? Mukhtar and Surge, of course, showed some life late in the season. We kind of started to see that Hani Mukhtar, especially in really the last month of the season, he kind of started to show a little bit of his old self a little bit, and that might be good news for Nashville fans. They hope that maybe that's kind of the version that Hani Mukhtar would rediscover heading into next year. Like simply, if Hani Mukhtar can rediscover his old form heading into next season, this attack should be much better compared to what we see last season. And if he can combine with both him and Surge, they could be in for a bit in business on the attacking. I mean, we already saw with how Vancouver's done a good job on the attack with that dynamic duo of Ryan Gall and Brian White. We could see the same thing here with Nashville with both Hani Mukhtar and Surge. That dynamic duo, if it work out next season under BJ Callaghan, maybe their attack is going to be a little bit better compared to this season. They somehow stay alive in the playoff run despite just a couple of massive skid, and that is actually a big indictment of how bad the Eastern Conference is near the bottom, and how much of a log jam and at times kind of a shit show in terms of how nobody seems to want those two wild card spot because most of these teams, even though when they go on a bit of a winning run, they just can't pull away because then they suffer a bit of a setback, and that's kind of the reason why they stay alive in this playoff hunt for so long, despite the fact that I mentioned many times it feels like they're done in terms of any playoff chances. And then of course the attendance number is still good, and I put an asterisk in terms of that because we all know that the attendance is not so good in terms of butts in the seats. That attendance number, I wouldn't even be surprised if the league maybe might even think about investigating whether or not if Nashville are actually posting the correct attendance number, because like I said, when you watch Nashville game, even on weekend games, it does not feel like that stadium is anywhere close to being full whatsoever. Now, what went wrong for this team? Again, pretty much everything went wrong for this team. Like, and Gary Ball pretty much have not only been found out, but is absolutely dead. Like it is pretty clear that teams have now figured out how to play Gary Ball. They have no answer in terms of thinking in a plan B in terms of playing different style if Gary Ball is not working. And as a result, that's why Gary Smith eventually got the axe this in the middle of the season. The defense again, which was holding firm for really the last couple of seasons, just simply buckle. Like again, they would this defense was just doing a carry job so much that when you do carry job so many times, eventually it's going to crumble, and boy, it crumbled this year as well. And I understand that, yeah, there were times where they were missing some key pieces as well, but still, even when they do had the key pieces, I mean that back line with Walker Zimmerman and Jack Mayer just didn't look like the same as what we've seen before as well. They didn't even get the new head coach boost with BJ Callaghan in charge, and the reserve kind of is much of the same. And again, part of that maybe is due to the fact that BJ Callaghan really tried to implement his style right away with the team, and when this team has been under Gary Smith for so long and playing the style that Gary Smith has been kind of implemented, it's very hard for them to change it right off from the get go. So maybe that's kind of the reason why we didn't really see that new head coach boost. It feels like AJ Callan trying to change it, and it just I saw that when he did try to change it when they decided to be a more possession kind of base of team, they just aren't able to do so because they can't get that system out of them in terms of playing from a Gary Smith kind of style play. Good team that want to keep possession and be a little more patient. And that's also kind of the big question I will say about this Nashville team as we'll talk about moving forward. Can BJ Callaghan actually implement that system into this group of team that again a lot of these players that is currently with Nashville are still Gary Smith kind of player and are player that has been with this team ever since they came into the league in 2020. Now, moving forward, for this Nashville team, so yeah, as much as it's easy for Nashville to say, well, why don't we just either rebuild or retool or just kind of tear down this core that they've been built on for the past couple of years? Well, the problem is they really can't. And in fact, I think they found themselves in a similar situation that TFC found themselves in 2023, where as much as they want to go through a rebuild or the beginning of a deep rebuild, they're kind of hit by setbacks because they lock a lot of their players to long term contract, and that includes some bad contract as well. And that's kind of the same case for Nashville. They do not have a lot of roster flexibility, and of course they can use some of their buyouts as well, but that's not going to get you so far when you still have so many of these players that are making a lot of money, clearly not performing, and you can't get rid of them because they're already under guarantee contract heading in to next season. So again, like what I said about TFC in 2023, it just feels like it was a year of just kind of the beginning of a long rebuild where you're just trying to make the year go by before you finally get rid of these ugly contract that they locked themselves in previously, and maybe Nashville will have to do the same thing as well. They absolutely need to develop young talent or look for some. Now, as much as I said that they don't have a lot of roster flexibility, and one that includes the fact that they don't actually have a DP spot open. They already spent all three DP spot on Hani Mukhtar, Sam Surridge, and Walker Zimmerman, and I don't think any of those players is going to be leaving this team heading into this off season or even buy down their DP tag. The good news, at least for Nashville, is that this is where they can still use their U22 initiative, and I'm pretty sure they are very thankful the fact that under this new rule that they at least get a little bit more flexibility out of that. Now they already use one U22 initiative slot. I think they use it on Patrick Yep, who didn't really see a lot of minutes this season as well. But there's no doubt that they do have two more that they can use, and this is where let's see if they can look for a young talent or even develop within. Because again, if you're a team that is really locked in terms of all the 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 roster being locked into start heading next season, this is where you really need to start looking into your youth department and maybe hope that some of the youth players can develop, that they can develop a bit of a core, or even looking for some and signing some U22 initiative kind of player as well. And then I think the last thing heading into next season is that will this team adapt to BJ Callaghan more possession based style? And they kind of have to because they eventually there's no doubt that this team is going to be look much different heading into to next season. And anytime when you decided to implement a style in the middle of the season, it's always going to be tough to do so. This is why as much as I talk about how the new head coach boost is kind of a real thing. Well, it can only be a real thing if you decided to not change the model so much as what BJ Callaghan decided to do when he first came in, and that there's no doubt that he's going to continue to use this style. I don't think this is going to be a team that's going to go back to the Gary Smith ball kind of style, because we know that doesn't work whatsoever, and teams have find out how to deal with that when they face against Nashville. So there's no doubt that this possession based style play we'll see how, of course, it work out. And going back to what I said about the last moving forward series about St. Louis. St. Louis actually has done a good job, at least kind of implement a new style under John Hackworth, and I even mentioned how there could be a chance that because he did a relatively good job implementing it, maybe he could get the permanent role. Well, Nashville is gonna have to hope that's gonna be the same case too, where with BJ Callaghan implement a new style, eventually this team will learn, and this team maybe just maybe could get themselves back to playoff contention. I mean, again, that roster, their flexibility problem that they have, that's kind of what would really lock them in terms of not just going through a complete tear down. Not until next season when some of those contracts start to go out. So for next year, it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to. I do believe BJ Callaghan could do well with this team. I do think that whatever he does in terms of the style will eventually work out, but we shall see if that is the case heading into next season. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. If you're a Nashville SC fan, what do you think is the MVP, disappointment, young player to watch? What went right, what went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward, how is this team going to look heading into next season? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.